Hey, Studio DNA fans, I'm Chad, a new podcast host here on the network. I'd like to invite you to check out my new show called Hot Takeout, where I mix together some of my favorite things, fast food and musical artists. When you listen, you'll get that feeling you have when you get an onion ring in the bottom of your French fries. It's a win. We'll dig deep with the artists. We'll find out what inspires them and what foods they have to stay away from. And we're also playing fast food games, which will also make sense when you listen. So check out the Hot Takeout podcast streaming right now here on the Studio DNA Podcast Network.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 14 of Disney Plus Reviews. I'm one of your co-hosts, Phil Souza, and I'm here with my co-host, my good friend, and the only one who appears when I snap my fingers. I call it the snap.
Where am I?
When I do that. Jack Alterman.
I was just eating pancakes, and now I'm here.
Yep.
Where?
Thanks for joining me.
What year is this?
Sorry I didn't give you a heads up before I snapped you into existence.
I've seen this video up or this thing up here. They made an Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Boy, it's been a while.
Where am I at? Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah. You doing all right today?
I'm doing great. Man, I'm pumped to talk. Always pumped to talk about Disney Plus, and the most unbelievable streaming service ever,
dude.
Because of all the content, and I'm still very leery of it because there can't be. It's too good to be true.
Yeah.
And I think that they're probably using our data, or they're now spying on us using Disney Plus. It's too good of a deal.
Or it's. Do you think it could be just like an introductory rate? Like,
and then they'll
raise it in a couple of years.
Screw us all over.
I guess
because be like, we're raising the rate, and we're like, we're going to cancel. Too bad. You can't. Yeah, and then Walt Disney hologram appears in your house. We now own you. Welcome to Disney.
Your first taste is free, and then now you have to come back for more because you're addicted.
It's a small world.
My wife Jessica and I had a brief conversation yesterday about Disney Plus, actually, because we were watching the ending of Tangled, which Tangled is by far my favorite Disney princess movie that they've released. Cool. That Disney's really, I love Tangled. We were watching the end where like all the lights are going up into the sky, and they're singing, I think, one of my favorite songs from any Marvel. I got Marvel in the brain. From any Disney movie at the end, I see the lights, or at last I see the light. That song, and I'm watching this beautiful scene unfold, and I'm just like, how is this possible for $6.99? Like that, everyone is only giving them $7 a month of their cash, and they have access to all this stuff. And I know I sound like a total Disney fanboy. We are not paid by Disney to do this podcast. That's why
I'm adding in the conspiracy that there is something going on here we don't know about.
Dude, for $7, and so granted, we have a 3-year-old girl who watches Disney Plus literally every day. Every day. For 31 days this month has watched Disney Plus. So for us, $7 is an absolute no-brainer. If they doubled the price tomorrow, we'd still pay it. Like it's kind of crazy, all the content that they're offering. So.
They were banking. I think that Disney had to have been banking on the sheer number of people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do we know the
volume? Yeah.
Do we know the exact amount of subscribers on Disney?
No, although I did hear numbers that it was definitely in the millions just on day one. So they're doing just fine.
Okay. Well, you knew that anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have.
But you
could have watched Black Hole and known that Disney's doing just fine.
It's worth it to a lot of people just for the big three, which is going to be Disney princess movies, Marvel, and Star Wars. So it just, that alone, I think, had a lot of people from day one.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We've talked a lot about Star Wars on this podcast. We've talked some about some other like individual properties that they have, just little one-off things. We've not dove too deep into the Disney princess stuff, although we probably need to have some guests on and kind of talk about some of their favorite movies at some point, maybe even kind of re-review some old Disney princess movies. But today is all about Marvel. We're diving deep into MCU stuff. We are certainly not going to cover every single Marvel related property that is on the service. If you start diving deep and go way down that rabbit hole into like old like Fox TV shows and Disney TV shows and and all of the little like straight to video stuff that's on there. I mean, we'd be here for 2 or 3 hours talking about all of it. But I think for the most part, we're going to be talking about the MCU movies. And then I do want to have Jack kind of share some of his thoughts on some of the television properties that maybe I haven't watched as much of.
And that's a hit and miss. So you talk about a hit and miss, man, especially the stuff they've pulled in. Disney, what's funny about Disney Plus is like they have put some shows on their streaming service that I'm not saying they're bad, like the messages are bad or they're just really bad. Like the animation was kind of crappy back then that they put on.
Right.
And I'm not even talking about the old Spider-Man show from like back in the day. I'm talking like 90s level Fantastic Four, 90s level Iron Man, which is bad news. I mean, just bad. Gosh, so bad. Anyway, we'll talk about more about that in a bit.
And honestly, other than X-Men, I don't know that I've seen the 90s X-Men show. I don't know that I've seen anything that's animated Marvel before the year 2000.
Well,
I didn't watch the Spider-Man show from the 90s.
But that one's great. Like,
is it good?
Spider-Man animated is really good.
Okay.
It ties into
I think Iron Man is pre-2000, right?
94.
Okay.
And
yeah,
I
didn't watch any of that either. Yeah.
Hurtful to watch.
But I have seen some from the 2000s that I can speak of.
What was neat about one thing about that Iron Man animated show was that they had some characters that you'd never seen in animation before that are like deep dive comic book fans or comic book characters. And then they are on screen. And so if you're a comic book person, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool that Black Knight is in a show. That's kind of cool that, oh, look, it's MODOK. I've never thought I'd see this.
Yeah.
And it was before Wikipedia or before anything where you could research a character. So it's kind of cool to see them in live action or not in animation. But other than that, it was like, this is pretty crappy.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of talk about 3 basic categories. The first one is going to be just kind of our favorite movies from the MCU. Second one will be the biggest moneymakers. I'm interested to know kind of which ones have made the most money over the last 10 years, more than 10 years. And lastly, what are some of the highest reviewed from the critics? And I think we'll talk about how the critics can be kind of weird about some of these movies as we discuss through that section. But I definitely want to talk about kind of the critics' reviews on the movies, which ones are the highest rated. But before we do that, Jack, I do want to actually touch, I don't want to save this to the end because I'm afraid we won't have enough time for it. Let's talk about the TV shows first, and then we'll get into the MCU
we'll
stuff.
blast through those real quick. The interesting thing, like I said, Marvel or Disney has put on, man, just oodles and oodles of television shows and animated things.
There's some stuff on here that I've never heard of.
Did you ever watch?
I didn't know there was a Rocket and Groot show.
Well, and that's like a little smaller show. There's a Guardians of the Galaxy show that's similar to the other animated stuff. You have a lot of kid-type things, like this Marvel Rising thing.
Superhero Adventures is one that I've actually heard of, and it is more like young kid-friendly, right?
The Superheroes Adventure is not to be confused with Superhero Squad.
Oh, maybe that's
Superhero Squad is actually kind of fun.
Okay.
And
that's what I was thinking.
And it's pretty fun, but there's just so many random ones on here.
Marvel Rising, Secret Warriors, which actually has Miss Marvel in it. Miss Marvel's one of my favorite characters of all time.
Scroll down a little bit there, bro. Now, here we go. Spider-Verse stuff. You have the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s. You have Spider-Man Unlimited, which is future Spider-Man.
Okay.
You have Ultimate Spider-Man.
Which I forgot about that show. I actually have seen.
It is pretty good.
I think I've seen maybe all the episodes of that show, actually.
It's pretty good scroll over in that.
And I did like it.
There. You have the old school Spider-Man from, I think,
That's
the
60s?
It's the early 80s.
Okay.
I remember watching that. Stan Lee does the opening in that. This is Stan Lee and blah, 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 blah. He does that. Amazing Spider-Friends is the old school one, and that was the 80s as well. And that actually may be what I'm talking about because it's got Iceman and it's got Firestorm.
Okay.
I think it's her name, and she was made up just for that show.
Okay.
Spider-Woman is absolutely god-awful horrible.
Really?
And not the character, because I would love for them to do a live-action Spider-Woman, but that show's not very good.
This one here, the one that we talked about.
Click on that real quick.
That's not the original show?
Date. Let's just see the date on there. 81.
81, okay.
So that's the 81, and that's not Spider-Friends.
So which is this Spider-Man?
Probably that one.
Okay.
Probably the 81 one.
Okay.
And then the...
I thought that was 60s.
No, that is 60s. That's a live-action... That's a live-action Spider-Man that you're talking about.
Oh, really?
I don't know that it's on.
I don't know anything about that.
I don't know that it's on here.
Okay.
Because it may be owned by maybe CBS owns that. I can't remember. But it's definitely a different thing, and it may be Sony too. But you got X-Men animated series, which by the way, like we watched a few episodes of that this morning.
Is so great.
But here's the thing that's not great about it is the animation syncing up with the audio.
Oh, really?
But the stories are great. because it's all like they did a great job of ripping things right from the comic
books, yeah,
and said we're just gonna make this show into that.
They did all the Phoenix stuff from the comic books,
yeah,
didn't they?
And that
before
was
the movies did it.
And the Phoenix Saga was the one on that series that I was on X-Men animated series that I was kind of like, but then there's Days of Future Past, like literally beat for beat with the comic book. And so if you've seen the newer X-Men movie, Days of Future Past, you're kind of like bummed out because you're like, the animated series did it better. That Iron Man is not Armored Adventure. If you go back here, is the Iron Man show. One more back. At the end there, you see that at the end,
okay.
close to you. That thing is so bad. Just
really awful.
94,
one season,
and it was deserving to have one season. But you have these characters. Hawkeye is in an episode there. You have some different people. You have a lot of these characters that you've never seen before, but it's just so bad. Like
MODOK's in more than one episode.
Well, and I think that you had X-Men animated series had success. X-Men series had success, so they're like, well, let's just do a bunch more. And so you had the leader on here. And,
dude, this looks really awful.
It is bad. It's hard to watch, but it's also like, if the horror movie podcast were to ever do a horrible television show podcast,
that'd be on.
I would probably do a whole thing about that. This Fantastic Four is so bad, like beyond bad. Silver Surfer is pretty crappy. There's just a lot of bad stuff on there. There's good stuff, but there's some stuff where you're like, wow. That X-Men Evolution I never really got into.
So this Wolverine and the X-Men actually looks kind of interesting. That's got to be a newer show.
It's a little newer. It's 09.
Okay.
And it's not bad, but it's a retelling of a lot of the animated series. So like if you want to watch some like really good and succinct X-Men stories, X-Men animated series that's on now, Disney Plus. Is good to go.
It's interesting that we're looking at this because one thing I have done is I've read a lot of Marvel comics. I've probably read over 1,000 for sure, but I've read some of the Wolverine and X-Men and the X-Men comic books from the like 2000s and stuff like that, which I'm sure is probably what inspired that show. How Wolverine comes to basically kind of lead the X-Men is because of like a huge falling out with Cyclops, and I guess that was the early 2010s. And he basically kind of takes a group of X-Men and almost kind of shields them away from Cyclops and how like crazy he's become. So I'd be interested to see if that show kind of mimics the comics a little bit.
The one thing about Spider-Man animated series that is very in line with what's happening right now, you see that Morbius trailer. Have you heard about the Morbius movie that's coming out? Morbius is a living vampire or whatever he is.
Oh, I did hear about it.
He's not a living vampire. That's Blade. But Morbius is basically a genetically created vampire, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so in the Spider-Man animated series, you had Morbius in a storyline, you had Blade in a storyline, you had Punisher in that same storyline, and then you had Spider-Man whittled in there too. And so when I see that Morbius trailer, that new movie that's got Jared Leto as Morbius, like it's kind of like I get pumped because I really want to see Blade on screen. I want to see Punisher on screen. I want to see all these guys on screen. So anyway,
and then there's a bunch of live action stuff. I kind of fell off of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after the first three seasons. I know I watched through season 3. I think I gave up after that. One of my favorite comic books, I've mentioned this on other podcasts that we've done before, but one of my favorite comic books, and actually one of the comic series that got me into comics from day one, was The Runaways. The Runaways is actually one of the first comics I ever read.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Instantly fell in love with the characters. But I have not watched that show. It was originally a Hulu original, exclusive to Hulu.
Yeah.
And I was so excited when I heard it announced. Never watched it. Gone back and read some of the reviews on it, and it's getting a lot of like 60s, kind of in that range.
Hard time with that. Like that live action stuff is tough because I think it either hits it like square on what is expected of it, or it misses it, and then fans are like, well, this is not anything what I expected or wanted.
Yeah.
And so Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did that too with people because initially they're like, okay, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's going to be regular human people that are in S.H.I.E.L.D. inside of the Marvel universe, and they're going to be able to interact with these characters. Well, then they didn't really include any of the characters. Like over the long haul, they never really included a lot of those characters from Marvel, and they tried to make some of their own a little bit because of licensing. I think they struggled with, which is really weird.
Yeah,
that they struggled because the MCU, the actual DC this happens in DC too with the DC stuff. Where they have comic book characters, and certain ones the studio won't release for use on your show, And so then you try to make something, and it's just weird. And so Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had that happen. Did you ever watch Agent Carter? Because it's on Disney Plus as well.
I watched the first season of it. I did not come back for the second season.
Amanda and I both really liked Agent Carter. I enjoyed it. It was a little bit different. They did it. It's more retro. It's old. It's in a different time period.
One of the characters on there is Agent Sousa.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, is it a relative?
No. Okay. No relation.
Very good. So anyway, that's more back to the live action, but really they've struggled on the live action TV side of it. Think about that. Did you ever watch any of that Inhumans? Like I've heard it's nearly unwatchable.
No, I don't think I will.
And they were going to make a big deal of it, and then it's like it just died. Like it's so weird.
The problem with the Inhumans, I guess you could say this about Guardians of the Galaxy, but the Inhumans is a lot of characters that people have never ever heard of, and so you either have to have like an incredible writer that's going to like completely knock it out of the park and get you to love all these characters. You have kind of one shot, and if you miss that shot, then the entire series falls apart.
And the Inhumans, like Joss Whedon and those guys really pushed the Inhumans because they didn't have rights to X-Men,
right?
And they were needing a mutant type thing.
And to be fair,
Inhumans are kind of
even in the comic books, the Inhumans and the X-Men get mixed up a lot. Like they're very similar.
Yeah.
So
anyway, and they're just not as. Honestly, they're not as.
But if you read comics,
fun as the X-Men.
If you read comics, you know that the Inhumans are not a thing. Like it's the Inhumans are mentioned every year in some Marvel comic in some way, shape, or form. But those characters, the characters that make up the Inhumans, are not major characters. They're not characters that anyone is going to recognize.
Yeah. The only one is that Black Bolt. Black Bolt is one that was in the Illuminati with Professor X and Namor and all those guys. Whenever they did the Dark Reign, they started to go into the Secret Invasion angle, and the Dark Reign angle, and all those. So
I think probably the one.
Am I saying that right? Is it Black Bolt?
I don't know. I didn't look that one up. I think that sounds right to me. Yeah. The one that I think a lot of people would know from comic books is Medusa, because Medusa actually does show up in a lot of the X-Men stuff. So if I've read a lot of X-Men, so I've seen Medusa several times.
Black Bolt is the.
Okay.
Black Bolt's the guy that.
So yeah, outside of Medusa and Black Bolt, it's going to be a lot of people you've never heard of. Easily, like undisputably, the biggest Inhuman character of all time is Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. She's an Inhuman, but I don't think a lot of people know that she is an Inhuman, and she's certainly never appeared with the Inhumans. Like she's almost too big for the Inhumans at this point. Right. Like she's kind of served alongside the Avengers, the Champions. She's been in other groups, but to see her, I think she will be a part of the Inhumans at some point, but only maybe if she loses traction, because she's been such a huge character for.
I've been Lockjaw in there.
Yeah, Lockjaw's the dog. Yeah,
and so there's a shot that there's things you. I don't know if you've ever played, and this is a video game, but like I don't know if you ever. Oh, that's a great video.
Don't search just Lockjaw. By the
way. There you go. So anyway,
I only know who Lockjaw is because I've read all 100% all of the Miss Marvel comic books, and Lockjaw actually shows up in a couple story arcs with Miss Marvel.
Well, I didn't know maybe you'd played Ultimate Alliance because he's in the video game Ultimate Alliance.
Yeah, I played a little bit of the first one.
He's in that one. So anyway, very good. So let's get on with this, Phil.
I think all that to say, like,
MCU.
I agree with you that let's kind of wrap it up by saying, like, the TV shows definitely are hit and miss. I think some of honestly, their best stuff is probably animated. It's not going to be the live action stuff.
No, but even, like I said, even the animated
has
like even
is hit
you're
and miss.
like, well, but you're right. Go ahead.
Look up reviews before you watch any of the TV series, before you devote time to.
Yeah, and I don't
want to
watch
a whole season.
Don't watch something, but man, like some of that stuff, you're like, I don't say it's unwatchable, but because your taste is different than ours, or mine. But it's like, man, I don't know, but I wouldn't want to chase a rabbit for 30 minutes and be like, well, that was a total waste. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. But Jack, what is universally accepted as great content is.
Hold on, let me think about this. Howard the Duck.
I mean, I like Howard the Duck. Most people don't.
I got one more guess. Maybe. The 1994 Fantastic Four that Harvey Korman did. No,
Swing and a Miss.
Oh, okay. What is? I guess I don't know what's good.
It's called the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, okay, yeah.
A lot of people refer to it as MCU.
Pretty successful.
Yes, I'd say so.
for an independent, cinematic universe, pretty successful, really.
Yes. When people think of Marvel, they probably only think of MCU, to be honest, unless they grew up on some of these great TV shows.
I like Iron Man, 1994.
So before we get into the actual numbers, I don't want to bore people with numbers, but I do want to kind of cover some of the top ones or whatever. Maybe we'll just do top 5 or something. But before we get into all that, what are some of your favorite movies in the franchise?
Doctor Strange was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
The first Thor was like nothing else.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for what they did with Iron Man, because Iron Man in 2008, like it started this was kind of weird to me. Like, because Iron Man, like I said, that 94 cartoon, if you would have said after I watched that back when it came on, okay, Iron Man is not only going to revolutionize all of what they do in the MCU, it's going to be like the forebearer and like the main thing. I'm going to be like, no,
that was so crazy.
Insane.
Yeah, I remember first hearing that and I was like, wait, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was like, so they're going to make more movies with other Marvel characters, but it's going to be like some kind of shared universe that all these people live in?
Well,
like,
and the problem is...
It's so weird at
well,
the time.
it's great, but that had never been done because people always screw it up. Like, you see what DC has done with kind of their universe. Yeah. So, like, they threw out the Justice League stuff.
Marvel has made it look easy, but it
wasn't easy.
It's certainly not easy.
It took forever. It's world building, and you can't do it. It's like Star Wars, it's taken decades to do what they've done with Star Wars.
Right.
And Marvel did it over the course of, 10 years.
Well, and I mean, arguably, Marvel is the first to really do something, certainly of this scale. Like, you can point to Star Wars, but those are essentially movies in a series. Like, it's episode number 1, 2, 3, that kind of stuff. That is not what this is. Like, this is individual movies that all take place in the same universe, like MCU universe.
With continuity. And I think about...
And none of them are sequels to each other.
But I think how proud...
They oftentimes, timeline-wise, they exist side by side of one another.
I think
it's really interesting.
That Stan Lee had to be really proud of kind of what his because most of these things are his creation. So it's like his characters, at least. Most of them had to be. He had to be really proud of like what they were able to accomplish. So.
Well, yeah, and that, I'm glad he was alive long enough to see it really hit mainstream, because he was doing this stuff back in the 1960s, and it took 40 years, 45 years, if up to Iron Man from, I think the first Spider-Man, I want to say was 62 or 63. So that's 45 years until we get to Iron Man 1, which is 2008, if I remember correctly. So 45 years of his life's work to finally get to the point where it's making billions of dollars in the movies. And they had tried it. Like, there exist older Marvel movies. None of them did very well. And it certainly didn't amount to any kind of a shared universe type of thing. They're all one-off little movies. So, yeah, the fact that Iron Man got a sequel at all, let alone the fact that it blew up into basically culminating in Endgame, all the Avengers movies and stuff like that, is like mind-blowing. And we did all that in like... They did that.
We did it.
We did it, folks.
It's like when the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. We did it, guys.
Good job, my team.
We won.
Hopefully the Chiefs win.
We are all together.
That all that got accomplished in 11 years is just like unbelievable to me. The fact that they pulled it off and they actually did it. So yeah, it's crazy. Some of my favorites, I love Guardians. I love those guys.
Forgot about that. There's so many good ones. Like the Guardians one was like nothing else, man. It's really cool.
I did not. The Guardians was probably the biggest surprise for most people, outside of maybe the original Iron Man.
Well, a lot of people never even heard of Guardians before.
And a lot of people forget this, but Iron Man was not a known property for a lot of people.
And it wasn't proven. Like, it was like, again, like, one, they didn't have the tech to make it look like this one did.
Yeah. They obviously, Iron Man comics go back way back, all the way to the original Avengers. But they had like a terrible Iron Man show in the 90s, and then here comes 2008. We're going to do a huge, full-blown, huge budget movie, and it's going to be starring Iron Man. And people are like, "Who's that?"
And not only that, like if they would have done it in the 90s, he would have looked like Turbo Man from Jingle All the Way.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, like, this is what they'd have to do, and
it was a time and place thing. I think in some ways.
Sure that.
The original The Avengers movie, 2012. I always go back to that one because that was the first time where I know Aaron Dyster talks about it sometimes on Sif Pop of just kind of like that everyone's kind of sucking in air, all the gasping at the same time when you see all four of them on screen simultaneously, all kind of fighting, or six of them, I guess, all fighting side by side. You're just like, oh my gosh, this has never been done before. Like, these characters that I love are finally coming together into one film. It was the first time that we'd seen the Hulk really go crazy. He had his own movie before that, but it wasn't Disney, right? I think the Hulk is...
Oh, it was...
who owns the Hulk?
Well, Ang Lee did that first one, didn't he? What was it called? It was the Universal. Universal owns Hulk.
Okay,
so
right.
Universal put that first one out.
Yeah.
And then they tied it in with the Marvel stuff.
But yeah, like seeing the Hulk come in and just wreck shop, and Loki, and that movie, I think will always be very special for the entire franchise. I think probably recency bias. A lot of people would point to Infinity War and Endgame, but there's something really special about that first Avengers movie.
You couldn't have gotten to Endgame without the initial stuff.
Yeah,
so, Captain America did a big part in building out a lot of that world too. I mean, that first movie of his kind of sets a lot of groundwork.
Yeah,
Howard Stark's involved. Like, there's just a lot of cool things.
I think my favorite movies, honestly, and I don't know that a lot of people would say this necessarily. I think some people would agree with me, but some of my favorite movies, and I would say probably argue my top favorite movies, I don't have like a top 5 or anything, but are the funniest ones. I like the humor of the MCU, and that's something that I think a lot of people maybe don't think about immediately. They think about the action, or about the characters, or about the sci-fi, or about the CGI. I honestly go to humor more often than not, and there are some movies that I truly just belly laughed my way through. So I mentioned Guardians. Thor Ragnarok is freaking hilarious. Really? That movie is so funny. So it's a Taika Waititi movie, but the way that he did those characters, and the humor, and just the visual effects, like visual humor even, the fact that we got to see Thor and the Hulk kind of duking out together, like, that movie is a roller coaster ride, and I was not expecting that, because Thor: The Dark World was the second movie, and it came out, and it just kind of fell flat for me. I don't hate that movie, but I also didn't love it. And to see Thor Ragnarok come in, the third Thor movie come in, and just completely just turn it on its head. It's no longer... Thor: Dark World was very serious, with very few comedic scenes. I think Thor is at his best when he's really funny, and he was just hilarious in Thor Ragnarok.
Well,
and I dug that.
The first Thor was funny too, because of the some of the characters that had it with it. You're right. Dark World had a story that was interesting. In Thor storyline stuff, I mean, the Dark Elves are a big part of it.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to cover it.
Yeah.
But it definitely was a deeper dive into some things that maybe people weren't quite as.
I don't imagine. We don't necessarily have to be super negative and talk about like the worst movies in the series or whatever. But my guess is that Thor: The Dark World is one of the least revisited movies.
I think everyone says that. I think that's probably a pretty standard response.
But as far as humor goes, I really, really like the Ant-Man movies too. I think, help me, the main actor for.
Oh, Paul Rudd's
Paul Rudd, anything he's in, he kills it.
Yeah.
And his sidekick guy is so hilarious in those movies. And I like the fact that it kind of exists as like the lone heist movie in the entire MCU. Like, there's something really special about that first one. Ant-Man and the Wasp was good. I didn't like it as much as the first one, but that first Ant-Man movie is really, really funny. But coupled with one of my favorite genres of all time, this heist, kind of thing, and just the fact that they have to, steal, but in this very unique, like, could never be duplicated outside of, superheroes and stuff like that, of like him going like super, super small and then super, super large. Like, I love that character and what they've done with those. So, as far as like outside of humor, does it get any bigger than Infinity War? Like the duo of those two movies, like seeing all of your favorite characters on one screen, especially in Endgame, is just like, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, it's
rush.
Yeah, it's impossible to simulate like that sort of a big cast, and you can't get all of them together because they all have different schedules. So like, tie it all together. That's why the Lord of the Rings movies all shot like kind of simultaneously.
Yeah.
And like those actors were like locked in for like 2 straight years.
Yeah.
Doing those movies because they were not gonna, like,
you're just gonna live in Australia
for what we're gonna do. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
So that's kind of our faves. Let's talk some of the numbers, because I think those are always interesting, especially when it comes to the powerhouse of these movies. Like, these are some of the highest grossing films of all time. So here's the top 5 as far as worldwide box office. This doesn't include video releases, I'm sure, but this is what they are in order. So to nobody's surprise, the top 2 are Avengers Endgame, number 1, Avengers Infinity War, number 2. And honestly, there's a striking difference in the numbers between those 2 movies. So Avengers Endgame worldwide gross made just shy of it, but right at $2.8 billion in box office. Avengers Infinity War, no slouch for sure, but only 2.05. So like a full $750 million separates those 2 movies, which is very interesting to me.
Crazy budget difference too. If you look at the right there, the budget $356 million for Endgame, which is a lot of money.
Dude, wow. That's a lot. That's one of the highest numbers I've ever seen for a budget.
Well, I mean, to go to the very bottom of the list, the Incredible Hulk worldwide box office was $263 million.
Yeah.
The budget alone for Endgame is more than what Hulk made.
I don't have it sorted, but I think maybe the lowest they've ever spent on a movie is the first Ant-Man, $109 million.
Makes sense. I mean, the cast even alone, the
Paul Rudd
payout wouldn't have been as high because they're not gathering as many people, big name actors.
So you've got everything from $100 million up to $350 million. Some people think Infinity War, the part 1 of that saga, may have spent as much as $400 million on that movie, which is crazy. So those are the top 2. The original Avengers movie, 2012, still number 3 as far as the most box office sales. People really were excited to go see that movie. Avengers Age of Ultron, another Avenger. All 4 of those movies I mentioned are all Avengers movies. And then Black Panther coming in at number 5 on box office. That movie was huge at the box office, bringing
Black
all kinds
Panther too. What it brings to the table was it got so much. It's got such a rocket strapped to it because people were like, "Look, we're going to put black actor as the lead actor."
Yeah.
And man, he just took it and ran with it and did so great. It was a great movie, man. It's fun.
So, Jack, the only movie on this list out of 23 movies that I've not seen still to date, because I did not have time this week, I was going to watch it.
Which I can't believe this
is Black Panther. I've never seen it.
To me, I'm just like, how's that possible? Like,
yeah,
it's great.
Black Panther, to the time of this recording, came out almost 2 years ago, and I still have not seen it in the last 2 years. So
you've seen it, right? You haven't seen Black Panther?
I've just seen.
We're talking to
my son Miller is
Jackson.
here in the studio too. Sorry, he said I can't believe you haven't seen this movie. We're gonna watch this movie, pal. We're gonna watch it.
When we get home.
Maybe.
So Black Panther, $200 million budget, which actually is kind of not necessarily on the low ends, but it's kind of in the middle of their budget, their total budgets. But it brought in $1.34 billion, which is worldwide, which is crazy.
OMG.
And then some of the ones after that, Iron Man 3, which I believe, Captain America Civil War, which I would have thought that would have been higher on the list. That essentially was an Avengers movie. You had everyone coming together. Ant-Man was there. That was the first one with Spider-Man. And still, like, Iron Man 3 brought in more money than that.
Here's the thing, though, too. Iron Man 3, in my opinion, not very good.
No, it's not.
And the Mandarin switcheroo thing they do in that one, spoiler alert, hey, man, that was like, that was really annoying to me. And then when you look at Captain America Civil War, that's basically Avengers. That was basically Avengers, 2.5?
Yeah.
Essentially, at the time.
Everyone knew it was an Avengers movie.
Because it had all the Avengers in it. It had a really cool storyline. I liked it. It was really, really good. So.
Hulk was not there, but, I mean, other than that, I mean, almost...
Baron Zemo? Baron... Or Von Strucker? What's the bad guy in Civil War? Click on that. I can't remember. I always get it. I'm sorry, guys.
I remember the personnel, but I honestly couldn't.
I can't remember if it's Von Strucker or Zemo. Which one? I think it's Zemo. But they don't have him. He doesn't have a mask. Now, the new in the allegedly, what I'm hearing is that he will have a mask in the Daniel Bruhl. He just says villain. Thanks. Yeah. Anyway, so he's in. Daniel Bruhl is the bad guy.
Okay. Well, who did he play? I don't remember.
He's Baron. I think he's Baron von Strucker.
Okay.
Or is he? I can't.
Yeah.
Helmet. Yeah, Zemo. Baron Zemo.
Yeah, you're right.
So anyway, he did an okay job, but he never wore a mask. Zemo has a mask. A very obvious look. And allegedly in the Bucky Falcon show, I think you're gonna get that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited about that.
I just remember a lot of McDonald's, like all these companies were like just surrounding this movie, and everyone was like, okay, are you Team Cap or Team Iron Man? Everyone was like picking a side. There was just so much like culture around that movie, and Iron Man 3 made more money than it. It's crazy. After that, it's Spider-Man Far From Home, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man Homecoming, the 2 Spider-Man movies in the top 10, which are so hard to categorize. Like they're technically Sony, like they're lending it out to Disney, like they're still owned by Sony, but they count as MCU movies. And then Guardians of the Galaxy kind of rounding out that top 10. So yeah, they've made a lot of money. That is for sure. Let's look at the kind of the top rated movies. Far and away, like not even close, the top movie as far as the critics. Now, doesn't take. We've looked at Metacritic for this to kind of come up with the list. According to Metacritic, which kind of aggregates, if you don't know how Metacritic works, it basically takes all the scores. So Jack is a movie critic. He gives Black Panther a 3 out of 5. Mm-hmm. I'm a movie critic. I give it 5 out of 5. They would basically average those scores together.
By the way, my opinion would be 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. Okay. So aggregate those scores together. Total average of all the scores that came in, it would get an 80%, 80 out of 100. And that's how they do it. They do it for hundreds and hundreds of critics for all these movies. I'm sure they've gotten a lot. The number 1 movie is 9 points above the number 2, which is a very striking. That's a huge gap. But the top movie is Black Panther.
Yeah, it's got to be
88%.
Yeah,
so that's a lot.
It is very much.
That's a lot of 5 out of 5.
It is universally liked. Like,
oh yeah.
Now there's one.
I need to watch it.
Someone was complaining about it. I can't remember who was talking about it. Someone's complaining. Oh, it's one of the Monty Python guys, which is. I know that sounds stupid, but he was like ripping on it for what's the wordage? Cultural
Like bias?
No, like you're taking a culture and you're using it.
Oh, okay. Like
what's it called? Appropriation, cultural appropriation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you don't see it.
I mean, it's. Hello, people. It is a comic book character.
And it's a fake country.
Stop putting. It's a fake country.
Wakanda is not real, folks.
Oh my gosh! Like politicize everything to be egregious. You're upset about everything.
Yeah.
Who are these people? How can anyone live their life that angry all the time?
Right.
It's a movie. Jeez.
Yeah.
If I am basing my life on, man, I don't know, they're really abusing people by how they're making this movie about this fake comic book character from a fake country with a fake their main export is a fake mineral. I'm mad. Well, holy crap. So
if you're doing a superhero franchise, you would think you'd be exempt from some of that stuff.
Hey, maybe we should be glad there's a movie that's made $1 billion that has basically an all African American cast.
Yeah, the entire cast is.
I mean, how far
that's awesome.
Has Hollywood come?
Yeah.
That the people cast in this movie aren't just some extras that are, basically left out.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable. Anyway, someone's going to be mad about something.
Yeah.
Because that's just where we're at these days, apparently.
We should say this. None of these movies are above 90, and it's really hard to get anything above 90 because think about how many 100% you have to have just to stay that close to 100. Right. But yeah, 88% for Black Panther, and deservedly so from what I've heard. I've not seen it yet.
There's that old Hollywood guard, and I say old, it's starting to be like the Scorseses and the De Niro's and people like that. Like that have gotten on this kick now that they're like, look, the best movies are not comic book movies, and those movies are actually ruining movie creation. And I'm like, I think they're kind of paying the bills for you.
Yeah,
I think they're kind of keeping your craft alive. And I know you're making high art, but like these things are making billions of dollars,
right?
And you're I don't see the little, but your craft movie is making maybe $100 million, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you should be glad that these things are keeping your studios open, and paying lots of bills and keeping things relevant, and you get that way you get to keep making your fun little movies and make $100 million.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my thoughts. That's my take. So anyway, there you go.
I really think that, it's no coincidence that one of the highest grossing movies is also one of the highest rated. I think that movie did really well. It broke all kinds of records.
Watch it. I can't believe you've not watched this movie.
I'm going to watch it. Okay,
dear Lord.
I'll come back on the show and tell
Wakanda forever.
Tell everyone what I thought about it. But anyway. I think that movie was, before it even released, that movie was breaking records for pre-orders and stuff like that. I think they sold more tickets before the movie even came out than any other movie before it.
What is the difference?
However,
and what is the difference in all these movies? You look at now, Captain Marvel, similarly, female lead, made a lot of money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. That's groundbreaking.
Right.
Black Panther, groundbreaking because of what it stood for.
Yeah.
You just don't see that. So
it was cool to see people support the movie before it released, but the fact that it is 88 on Metacritic, that by far and away the most highest rated movie of all the MCU movies, definitely attributed to its box office as well.
Yes.
That means people were going back to see it a second time. They were telling all their friends, "You need to go see this movie."
Yes.
I definitely was one of those friends that was told that and then never went.
Man,
but I know I can watch it for free now on Disney Plus.
Dare you, sir?
Second one, and from here, all of the numbers get pretty close together. That's kind of an outlier. Black Panther, most of them are kind of all 1% away from each other after that. So 79% Iron Man, the original movie, is the second highest rated movie of all of them.
Yeah, I mean, it just did so much. It's such a vehicle. Similar to how
I think it gets a few extra points just for being so surprising. I think critics went into that movie predisposed to say this is going to be a flunk. Do not go see this film. Yeah. And they walked out and they were like, "Holy crap, that was one of the best movies ever."
Well, then they could do that with that character and make it. And it's it's Robert Downey Jr. He's so good.
Dude, that movie is I would say
perfect for that role.
80 or 90% of that score is just him.
Is there anyone more perfect for a role?
No, I mean, he is. You could argue Tony.
You could argue a lot of other people, and there are a lot of people that would say that Chris Evans is a perfect Captain America. But you can find other people to do that.
Other pretty boys, yeah.
It'd be hard to find someone better.
Dude, he is.
Than Robert Downey Jr.
You go back and even read the comics. I think comics are definitely inspired by the movies. Movies come out and they influence the comics.
That now, yeah. It's switched to that.
But things go the other way around, of course, as well. Even go back and read the 70s, 80s, and 90s Iron Man comics, and I truly believe that Robert Downey Jr. is the perfect, realization of that character. The way that he plays that character with all of his swagger and even some he thinks he's the best person in the entire world, all that kind of stuff. All the character flaws and all the character strengths that you see in the comics are perfectly epitomized in Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal. So I just loved it. The original movie is so great from a literal rags to riches. He is the richest man in the world, but is reduced to rags when he's in that cave, and then of course makes an Iron Man suit out of literal parts, and then becomes this one of the most powerful superheroes around. It's such a great story.
Really, really cool. And then to like I said, to lead toward to be able to lead toward doing an Avengers movie in a shared universe is pretty big. One thing, I don't know if we were talking about this, but Avengers Age of Ultron is in that same kind of category as Thor Dark World, where you go, it's not as good. It didn't quite reach the bar.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It did do some world building toward Wakanda, because Vibranium is in Ultron.
Right.
And you have Sebastian Claw that's in, did I get that right? Yeah, he's in Ultron as one of the bad guys, Schmeagol.
Yeah,
is in there.
By the way, Age of Ultron in the bottom 10, as far as critic reviews.
Right.
People did not like that movie as much, but you put the word Avengers in your movie title, it's going to make $1 billion.
Yeah, and it just like I said, Ultron as a character is, it's a robot, so you automatically then you have a little bit less of a connection, because the main bad guy in the first Avengers was I'm getting this off. Was it?
Wasn't it Loki?
technically, I guess, wasn't it? I gotta look. I can't believe I gotta look this up. There's been so many movies.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? There's been so many movies that I'm just like.
While you look that up, the third on the list is 78, so just 1% lower. Avengers Endgame. That is not a surprise to me at all. People left the theater of Endgame and immediately wanted to spoil it, like for everyone that they knew. But
It's basically it's basically Thanos, but it's the alien force that he sends to Earth.
Okay.
The bad guy in Avengers 1 is basically the aliens come destroy New York.
Oh, right,
or whatever.
of course, yeah.
And
this is the Battle of New York.
Yeah, and so you basically have.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, you have that. Loki's fight is with them.
Yeah,
and taking over people with the Tesseract. So
yeah,
there we go. So I apologize for the brain fart. I'm so sorry about that.
I forgot all about that, which we definitely should have remembered that because spoiler alert, it shows up in the Infinity War. Movie,
but that mindset of remember when New York was attacked, remember New York being attacked, like
that's what started
that
it all.
plays out through Spider-Man.
Yes,
it plays out through Spider-Man. It even played out in the now defunct Daredevil universe stuff.
Oh yeah, that's
street
right.
Level guys and the Defenders.
When season 1 didn't even talk about those shows. Those are some of the best shows ever.
But they're not even really considered canon.
Yeah,
and. That was the part about.
I'm shocked. It has to show up at Disney Plus at some point, right?
That's the MCU stuff that you're like, why wouldn't they just make that part of it? Why wouldn't you have had Daredevil just in this at some point? That's what I kept saying at the time. You don't have to have.
Yeah.
I love Luke Cage. I love him. Like,
yeah.
I would love to see him. I'd love to see Jessica Jones or even Iron Fist. But like, could have just plugged Daredevil into something. Like,
yeah, I would love to. I would love to see Daredevil on screen on the big screen.
And then you connect your two universes.
Yeah,
and
they already exist in the same world because like the Battle of New York phrase is mentioned in like the first episode of Daredevil.
Yeah, but the MCU never references them once. So then, tree falls in the forest. Did anyone even know it? No one sees it. Did anyone even know about it?
Yeah. It's because they're in Hell's Kitchen. Nobody cares about Hell's Kitchen. So the fourth one on the list is Guardians of the Galaxy, which, again, that movie is so funny and that cast is so good. Chris Pratt just kills it in that role. Like that movie was always going to be highly reviewed, I think, just because of the acting that's in it. Although Chris Pratt was not a huge actor back in 2014 as far as the movies.
Parks and Rec, and that was really.
But he got ripped up for that movie, and took his shirt off. The ladies love that.
He's so funny, man. Like he is just beyond funny. So.
Dude, and that whole cast is absolutely amazing.
Do ladies love ripped up abs or funny more? Is my question.
Both. They like a funny guy with abs.
Well, what if you can't have both? Thoughts? I don't know. We're not ladies.
I'm gonna say it always goes down to abs.
You think so?
Yeah.
Not if he's a tool, dude.
Dude,
funny guys always get the good looking lady.
I beg to differ. In the Beatles, they set this in stone with their popular hit, All You Need Is Abs.
What?
All you need is abs.
That's not the. That's not the. I thought you were going to say that Ringo Starr had abs.
Oh no!
But then I'm like, he never got.
He definitely didn't.
Anyway, sorry. We kind of digressed there.
Number 6 on the list is Thor Ragnarok. Very deservedly so. That's one of my favorite ones. Very highly reviewed. Spider-Man Homecoming. At about the same level on the 1 through 10 list as it was for the box office, which is very interesting. Doctor Strange, which was not in the top 10 for box office, is definitely in the top 10
Story is
for
so
reviews.
good in that movie, and it's so different than everything else, and that's what makes it great. We haven't had a second one yet, right?
No, they're making it.
Isn't that weird, though?
Yes, it's coming out soon.
How long ago was that?
2016.
Oh, okay. That feels like a lot longer ago than that.
I don't think it's coming out this year.
Man, I'm really looking for it. What is it? The Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Something of Madness, yeah. I don't know when it's coming out.
But that actually looks kind of creepy. Like, I think that actually might be your first
maybe it is coming out this year.
Near horror movie of the MCU.
But that movie, as far as box office, is way down the list. It's in the bottom 10, but it's in the top 10 as far as reviewed.
But enjoyable. I love watching that movie. So,
number 8, I think. Captain America: The Winter Soldier,
which is a great movie.
Yeah, that movie is really good.
Well done.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, that's higher than I would have put it. I don't dislike that movie. It's a great movie. I think that the cast is phenomenal. But I would actually put the first Ant-Man higher up on the list. The first Ant-Man is way down. It's in like the bottom 6. It's 6 from the bottom. The original Ant-Man.
I don't know why.
The movie's great.
Maybe it's a Paul Rudd thing that some people just don't like him, but man, I love Paul Rudd.
The original Ant-Man has a 64 on Metacritic.
That's weird.
That's way lower
That's
than
insane.
I would have given it.
That's insanity.
I guess, and then Spider-Man: Far From Home is right after that. I do want to cover the bottom three. So, Thor: The Dark World, which we already talked about as being one that's probably
It's
not
the lowest.
It is the lowest on the list as far as Metacritic goes. 54%.
Gosh.
Yeah, I mean,
See, I don't think it's that bad. Like, I don't think it's at that level.
that's a lot of 2 out of 5s, 3 out of 5s.
It gives you Loki's origin story. Like that movie
Yeah.
is technically Loki's origin story. So, in the was it called the Cask of Frost or Internal Frost or whatever it is that they're after?
Yeah.
It's a fun little thing that's in. That's in.
I think that movie is just undeservedly heavy. Like, it's just a heavy watch. And I think there's a lot of weirdness with like Rainbow Bridge and Realms. And I think it just lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
People were,
that's the thing about Thor, is that Thor has this other thing going on that they've kind of had to retcon part of Thor stuff.
They absolutely
to
have.
make him into movies, to make him into the Avengers. And it's like, this is what you get when you retcon some things. You're like, oh.
They have changed his character a lot. And if you don't believe me, watch Thor: The Dark World and then see him in Endgame. See Fat Thor. Like, they've really changed the way he operates.
And even before this, even some of the Norse god stuff, not Ragnarok, but Valhalla. Where's he from? What's the name of his planet he's from? Oh my gosh. We're struggling.
Yeah,
I'm struggling today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Gosh.
Didn't get enough sleep
This
or
is
something.
normally my wheelhouse here. Thor is from
Asgard. Yeah,
what the heck?
Yeah, because it's the Asgardians of the galaxy. Was the whole big
Asgard
joke.
is a planet. Well, I remember when being younger, being like, "Oh, is he dead? Or is it a heaven? Is it
I assumed it kind of was Valhalla.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so they've taken that and turned it into planets and the nine realms and blah 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 blah. So,
but yeah, that movie's. Honestly, go back and watch it. It's hard to go back to after some of the stuff that they've done. Iron Man 2 is second from the bottom. I would put Iron Man 3 there before I would put Iron Man 2. But Iron Man 2 is not necessarily loved either. The original Thor, which is that score is way lower than it needs to be. 57% for the original Thor.
How's that possible? It was good.
I liked it.
Meow meow. I remember whenever they tried to pick up the Thor's hammer.
I don't even remember it being that.
It was good.
That maligned at the time.
That's what I'm saying. Like rankings on things. And you and I talk about that a lot. And I will rant about Rotten Tomatoes forever because it makes me laugh. Like the movie critics are like, "It's bad," and then everyone's like, "No, we like it." And then just weird. I don't know.
So fourth from the bottom is The Incredible Hulk. This is the Edward Norton movie. I thought it was pretty good. Edward Norton was out of there so fast after that movie. I wonder if that
that made it
influenced
and that made it. And then you got Mark Ruffalo, which for me, Mark Ruffalo, whatever. Or as I like to call him, Bark Ruffalo.
Yeah.
But
he's totally turned around that character. People love Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not as big a fan of it.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
Yeah. Would you have liked to have seen Edward? Like, had he worked out?
I would have, but I think Edward Norton is so locked into. I am Edward Norton, and I'm an actor, and I really like. He was very much like, why do we have to have the Hulk on so much? I want me to be on. A lot.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really big sticking point for him.
Me.
And he was upset about him not just getting to act.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the Incredible Hulk, and we kind of want to see
people want to see the Hulk.
The Hulk, and I think Mark Ruffalo, or I like to call him Bark Ruffalo, he was like, okay, yeah, we'll just make sure you CGI my face onto this.
Yeah.
So the Hulk looks like my face.
And then fifth from the bottom is Iron Man 3, which is a good spot for that. I honestly put it even lower, but
Just stupid.
And then we'll stop here. But like the sixth again, Ant-Man, which is so weird to me.
That's weird.
I would at least put that like in the middle of the list as far as serious critic reviews. Sometimes I think critics, and this is kind of where our usual discussion comes in, is like I think the critics are a little too hard on these movies.
Yeah.
These movies aren't coming up for Oscars for the most part.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's
to the point where, when we talk about Black Panther already ad nauseam, we've talked about it a long time, but Black Panther kind of was in that realm of like, maybe we should give this an award for what it is,
right?
And they did a good job in this movie. Where does it rank in there? To the point where didn't they almost make a whole other category of Oscar for Black Panther? Wasn't that a discussion?
That sounds
because
familiar.
they're like, look, this is a great movie and it should be awarded, but it doesn't fit in any of our British pudding award show, so we don't know where to put it. but it deserves something. So they were going to make up a blockbuster or like a big release or some other fictitious category, and then they ended up not doing it, and it was like hilarious to me. Like I'm like, you could just make an award for it, or you could just say it's Best Picture. Maybe that would be better.
So I think a lot of it is, unless I'm wrong, unless I'm looking this up wrong, I don't think the Oscars have like a Best Action Movie category.
No, they don't, because they don't like action movies.
Yeah.
And they just do not like action movies.
And a lot of these movies, honestly, would be not just nominated, but probably would win that category if they had that category.
Well, I mean, honestly, if you had that category, you could honor a lot of people. I don't know if they think that's the weird, ridiculous, dumb cousin in the corner they don't want to acknowledge, but it's like, again, that is who is paying for your industry. Like, whether you like it or not, like, that's who is driving your industry and who gets people into the theater. Again, not British pudding.
So Endgame is actually nominated for the Oscars. That we're recording this before Oscars 2020. They're coming up in a couple weeks, but it is nominated for one Oscar, and that's Best Visual Effects.
Yeah, and they're willing to give that away and do that because, I mean, otherwise they, like I said, there's not another.
So out of I'm finding this article, as of 2018, there were 17 MCU movies, and out of those 17, 8 of them got nominations for visual effects. So that's kind of their category. Is like, well, we're not even going to nominate you for Best Picture, but we are going to go ahead and give you the nod with Best Visual Effects. Which I think is kind of a slap in the face.
I'm trying to find this, but Black Panther did win 3 Oscars.
Okay.
And I've got to dive down and figure out exactly which ones it won.
I know, like, some of the other categories that they've been nominated for are Best Sound Editing, Best Makeup and Hairstyling. No movie has ever been nominated for Best Picture. And that's kind of it. Like, they just kind of get a lot of these little smaller categories that a lot of people just don't really even care about.
Which is really weird. Well, I mean, people do care about it, but you're like, I don't know. It's a whole other conversation, I guess. To talk about why
we could do a whole episode
why
about
they
the Oscars,
do why they do what they do and things like that. So,
but yeah, there are 9 nominees for this year's Oscars. I think that's maybe the most they've ever had for Best Picture, and Endgame's not on that list. It's just, I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point that you're probably not going to have an MCU movie that's ever nominated for Best Picture. No. Which is bizarre to me. Like, Endgame can absolutely clean up at the box office, be heads and tails box office wise far and away above any other movie that comes out in the entire summer. It doesn't matter. No. It's just not going to be honored by the critics, the serious critics, like other movies.
Like I said, it's just one of those things where,
like, Little Women is on the list of Best Picture.
Yeah, but people love it, man.
I know.
So Academy Award-wise, Black Panther won Best Original Score. This is the Academy Awards. Mm-hmm. It won Best Costume Design. Ruth E. Carter, and she became the first African-American woman to win an Oscar. And it won Best Production Design.
Okay.
It was nominated. It was nominated for Best Picture.
Oh, okay. That's what it was.
It was nominated for Best Picture. Okay, I'd like to see who it was nominated against.
That's what it was. That it was such a big deal that it got nominated for Best Picture.
It was nominated against the following movies. It was nominated against Vice, A Star Is Born, Roma, Favorite, Bohemian Rhapsody, Black Klansman, and Green Book. And Green Book won it, starring Viggo Mortensen, and I'm gonna get this guy's name wrong. And I'm going to get it wrong. So I got to click on it. Sorry, guys. Sorry, friends. Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali.
Okay.
Sorry.
Joker is nominated for this year's Oscars, which is interesting.
But it's different. The way they did that movie is different.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix has dirt on everyone, apparently. Is why he's able to win awards. I guess. I don't know. It's like he's just a weird dude.
Black Panther, by the way, the first superhero movie of all time to be nominated for Best Picture.
I think they were to the point where they're like,
it opened the door.
Well, but they had to look at that and be like, I mean, like, look at all the doors that busted open and all the ceilings that broke. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you have to give it some cred. And anyway, it was a good one. I liked it. I thought it was good, y'all.
Yeah, I'll watch it.
Totally. Oh, you need to watch it.
Sounds good. I'll watch it. All right, so that's kind of it for our MCU, or I guess all things Marvel conversation. We went a little bit longer on this episode than I thought we would, but that's okay. Lots to talk about with Marvel. We could talk for another hour.
Yep.
What else are you watching on Disney Plus? I have an interesting one for you. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to check it out yet, but Lamp Life. Have you seen this?
No.
So this is...
Is it a Lumiere in a solo film?
It sounds like it could be. It is not that. Lamp Life is, I think it just came out this week, or maybe a week ago. I didn't see it until this week. It is basically a tie-in to Toy Story 4, which is very interesting because you cannot watch Toy Story 4 on Disney Plus right now. I think it's coming very soon. But this is basically, where has Bo Peep been since Toy Story 2? Because she didn't appear in Toy Story 3.
Right.
So it is a short, a Pixar short. It says 11 minutes, but the last 5 minutes of that are credits. So
serious?
It's a 6-minute short from Pixar. It's over in like 5.5 minutes. Literally half of those 11 minutes are credits. So it's so bizarre that there's so many of those. And it's a very bizarre when you realize that there's only like two speaking roles, or two or three speaking roles in the short. Anyways, I think one of the most interesting things to note about the cast is that Woody appears in she's the narrator and the main actor for the scenes. It's a flashback of like, here's where I've been for the last 10 years or whatever. And she's telling the story to Woody. Woody is voiced by Jim Hanks. So Jim Hanks is Tom Hanks's little brother.
Good.
And does a lot of voice acting on behalf of Tom.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's good for Jim Hanks.
Yeah. So, can
we get Jim Hanks on the show?
I would love to.
I bet he's a young cameo. We could pay
he does a great job as Woody, but it is immediately noticeable it's not Tom. Like they sound similar to each other, the fact that they're brothers, but it definitely doesn't sound like Tom. Even from the first few phrases, I knew it wasn't Tom Hanks. But he does a really good job. It obviously is all about Bo Peep. She's kind of the main star of this short. And it's so short, there's not much to say about it without spoiling the whole thing. So basically just say, I recommend it. Go watch it, especially if you're a big fan of Toy Story, and especially Toy Story 4. And the lore of Toy Story is not really too much of a thing, but I think it'll wow kids, as far as especially kids that have loved Bo Peep or just any of the characters in Toy Story, about kind of where was she? That's never really explained in Toy Story 4. This is basically your answer for that. So there's definitely some cameos especially cameos from Toy Story 4 that you get to see. You get to see all the many different places that she was, and I don't want to spoil it, but it is crazy all the places that she's been.
That's cool.
And they kind of outline that. So that was really good. Right after we watched that, one of the ones that was immediately suggested after that is another Pixar short that's in the Toy Story world called Small Fry. And I don't know if you've seen this one. This actually is not so I should have said this right at the beginning. Lamp Life is an exclusive Disney Plus. So it was made specifically for the Disney Plus service. It's the only place that you can watch it. Small Fry is not the case. I think probably Small Fry was on a DVD or Blu-ray release, probably around Toy Story 2 or 3. But it is all about they don't say McDonald's, but basically it's a McDonald's toy of Buzz Lightyear. And they switch places. So Buzz Lightyear goes to this chicken place. It looks like Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or whatever. And he switches places. So the small version, the McDonald's toy version of Buzz Lightyear, goes home with Bonnie. I guess it's after Toy Story 3. So she goes home with Bonnie, and then the real Buzz Lightyear, the full size Buzz Lightyear, gets trapped like behind, like in the stock room behind McDonald's, which sounds like really dark and scary, but it's totally hilarious. He finds like all these other discarded McDonald's toys and has like this circle group session with them, and just like they're like, "Hello, Buzz," and he just kind of goes through this whole thing and eventually finds his way back. It's a really funny little thing. Again, 5 or 6 minutes. It's a real short deal, but it's both of those are highly recommended.
Cool. I've been watching X-Men animated series just because it's so good.
Yeah.
Again, the audio and the animation sometimes they're like, boy, it's not bad rough, but it's just rough because like it's the way it works. It's very flat, like 2-dimensional looking.
Yeah.
But the stories are really good, and like I said, comic book wise, it's as close as you're gonna get to X-Men comic stuff. And and just the way they approach it. And what's cool about that series is they did a good job of adding characters. Like you get to meet a lot of different comic book characters in it, and that was kind of the cool part. That's the best part about comics for me is all of the random characters that pop up. And they did about at least one show about every possible X-Men person you could ever imagine at the time, at least. So pretty cool. Love it. It's good. It's a good show. I'm very excited about Star Wars stuff. I know you're looking at Star Wars, Clone Wars stuff. But
so Clone Wars, I have a Clone Wars update. I definitely tore through a bunch of episodes this week. That's maybe one of the reasons I didn't get to Black Panther. Still not a good reason. I watched the last couple episodes I watched were about the Zillow Beast. And I wasn't familiar with that as a monster. It's a big monster character.
A long time ago since I saw that episode.
Yeah. It's actually a 2-parter episode. So they basically go to this planet. I don't remember the name of the planet. It's a planet name I had literally never heard of. And they basically take this huge, it's basically a dragon. It's a dragon with a fifth arm, I guess. And they end up taking it back to Coruscant, which is really awesome to watch because he basically wreaks havoc on all of Coruscant. And that was actually the episode of the previous one. So it's episodes 19 and 20 18 and 19 of season 2. This is kind of where I'm at. So I think the next episode I have to watch is 20. I'm almost done with season 2, and I'm going a little bit slower than I expected. I still hope to get all 6 seasons in before February 19th. I think they moved the date back a couple days, but February 19th is the final season of Clone Wars. So cool. I've still got 3 more weeks, and I've got 4 seasons. So if I can watch a season and a third
you'll be
every
in good
week.
shape.
I only have to watch 25 episodes a week.
Right.
I can do it.
Good luck.
Yeah, 4 episodes a day, basically.
Good luck.
But I'm still trekking along with those and really enjoying it. I know almost everyone that I've talked to says it gets way better after season 2, and I'm almost done with season 2, so I'm anticipating even better episodes coming up pretty soon.
That's cool.
So
love it.
Any ideas, Jack? Is there anything on Disney Plus that you've been wanting to watch?
We're watching. Hey, I think I have an idea.
Okay, do it.
Of something great. We've got to do Mighty Ducks.
Okay.
And we got to get my wife to do some Mighty Ducks. And not only that, in the news this week, oh man, and then not in a good way either. There was one of the Mighty Ducks that had a really bad week.
No.
What's his name? The goalie that got Goldberg. Man, that guy is on hard. He's having some bad luck as a person, and had gotten some trouble this week. Yeah, and it was kind of in the news. It was just bad. Okay, got some problems. Okay. So any prayers you have for Goldberg, I pray for Mr. Goldberg. So, okay. Anyway, but with that in mind,
you want to do the first one?
Yeah, let's do the first one.
Okay.
So we'll try to get my wife on. She's a big Mighty Ducks fan. Okay.
If you're listening to this, watch the Mighty Ducks and come back for the discussion next week.
Absolutely.
That sounds good.
Great. Let's do that. So.
After that, I might throw out a suggestion of Lady and the Tramp. I know that's one that we've talked about. That is a Disney Plus original. It's straight to Disney Plus. So I've not seen the original movie, like the original animated 70s movie or whenever that movie came out, in a very long time. But I wouldn't mind watching the remake of it. So I might try to see if Jordan wants to watch it, our 3-year-old.
Was there somebody announced a live action Bambi this week at some level or something along those lines?
I think that's live coming.
Action or something like that. I'm not at all like there's nothing about that I'm like, yeah, great, Bambi, yay.
I'm stealing Aaron Dyser's comment from Sif Pop recently, but he said, is there any chance that they don't remake every single animated movie in their catalog?
I think it will. You know why they like Miller? What's the $1 Million Man's theme song? Take it from there.
Money.
Disney
likes money.
Everybody's got a price.
They will make a profit on any movie that they make into live action. Even the movies that haven't deserved it, like Dumbo, will make it just a ton of money. So why not? Anyway, Lady and the Tramp is one that I wouldn't mind doing, but we'll save that for another time. Next week, let's talk about Mighty Ducks. Yeah. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Disney Plus Reviews. Let us know what you want to hear about on the podcast. Send us your own review or something that you've watched on Disney Plus, and we'd love to include you in the show. disneyplusreviews@hotmail.com. We will read your email and send us some audio with that email. We'd love to put you on the show. So
take your phone, record on the memo part of your phone, on the audio memos, and record yourself.
It is pretty easy.
Email it to us. It's very easy. Super easy. Tell us about Disney Plus, what you like about it. and what you've been watching. We would love to hear from you, and we'll play it on the air as long as it's clean. We don't want to play anything that's bad.
It's a clean show.
And we also don't want to maybe some ideas for things that Disney Plus could do with their unbelievable streaming service. It's $6.99. And again, I'm still not really trusting them. I think that there's a catch here.
Yeah.
They're selling our data to the lizard people that live in Antarctica.
Yeah, we'll find out what the bad side is later.
Bigfoot will come to our house. I'm not sure what the downside of this is. Anyway.
All right, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Disney Plus is made of people.